Welcome to Love and Live Abundantly. I'm Ilona.
I'm Bill. Do you want to love more effectively?
Do you want to live fully and love more courageously?
We talk about what all that means.
And how you can achieve it.
Join us. And we're back. And in case you couldn't tell, I'm Bill Mock, and my associate here is Ilona. The last time we were chatting about how to be more positive and about folks in our lives who tend to be so negative that it worries us sometimes that they might be hurting themselves with all that negativity. And then that kind of evolved into a discussion about how to be more positive and things to do to be more positive. And so I personally would like very much for us to pick up on that theme. And to I know that Ilona has some things in her life that she does routinely to stay positive. I know I do. And I know things that people in my practice, and I know Lana in her coaching practice and in her real estate world, uh, knows people and things that they do that keep them more positive. So I thought this would be a good chance for us to share that kind of stuff. So, if you're listening to this and you think, well, sometimes I get the blues or I get in the dumps or I feel negative or whatever, and uh, maybe if we could share a couple of things that you could try, that some experiments that you could have, experimenting with trying to be positive. So what do you think, Ilona?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that.
Thank God you agree. Oh,
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again. Yeah, I've worked, with all sorts of people and all different walks of life. And, the first one I like to bring up is, parents, before they get caught up in that busyness of the day. And I know their day starts early and it starts late at night, but even getting up 5 or 10 minutes earlier than the kids and taking just a few minutes, to just take some deep breaths and, you know, say some affirmations or just feel good that the day is going to go great and you're going to have enough time to get everything you need taken care of, and that you're going to feel safe and you're going to be happy. And, I think intention has a lot to do with it, like setting your intentions for the day. And, sometimes I do that when I feel overwhelmed. It's like I have enough time to do everything that I need to do. First, I look at the unrealistic expectations that I've put on myself in the past, right? However, now it's like, okay, what are the most important things? And so you can really set your day ahead with that. I do. So for me, in the morning, being around the fire and not doing anything for a little while and just appreciating my surroundings, connecting with nature, and it just makes me feel good and it keeps me warm because it's been a little chilly here. Um, it brings a calmness to me to do my morning fires. Um, if I don't do it for a couple of days, I feel kind of off. It's just a very relaxing time. It's like moments of nothingness,
Mm.
right? Where my brain isn't going a million miles an hour and I'm just back to the basics and appreciating, the property that I live on, my dog, my mom, the fact that my mom is 60 feet away, and that we get to live in this neighborhood, and being grateful for those things first thing in the morning.
I have a friend who's a Buddhist, among other things. He's called himself a Muslim sometimes, and he's dabbled in the Catholic Church. He's just been around with all that stuff. But one of the things that that he cites me on when he does presentations uh, of all the things to be known for. He once asked me who my if I could think of spiritual images or spiritual people or spiritual creatures in the world that influenced me. And I mean, the usual answers are there, right? Buddha and Jesus and all the rest of it, Muhammad and all the rest of it. And for some reason, what popped into my head was Elmer Fudd. Yeah. And I realized that through all these years, when Elmer Fudd would go hunting for the rabbit with his shotgun, and he would walk up to the rabbit's burrow, the things that he would say were, "You have to be very, very quiet." And I realized that I never heard that. What I heard was, "You have to be very, very still." And man, that triggered the Buddhist in him. I didn't know that. I said that was what was influential to me, that it was important not to be aggressive or assertive or noisy or proactive. You had to be very, very still. And I do know moments like that. And I don't, over the years, I've enjoyed them, but I don't know that I actively sought them, and I probably should. And now, because of this podcast, I'll probably go running out on the front porch and very aggressively be very, very still. But you triggered that in me when you talked about just be calm, be in the moment, be here. I mean, and I think about the various religions that my friend was involved in, and he could cite quotations from all of those holy books that had to do with just be still. Just take that moment to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're such a hustle and bustle society. We gotta go, go, go. We gotta keep up with the Joneses. I mean, well, and I feel like with grocery prices, like you gotta hustle and bustle, right? It's not easy for a lot of people. And but being in that and in that stress and it's not good for our bodies and our brains and all of that. So to just be able to take a few minutes, if it's one time a day, I mean, I'd love it 3 times or 4 times a day, but I know people have to start somewhere. And so just one time a day, just forget about the kids for 5 minutes, forget about your spouse, forget about your work, just be and silent and quiet your mind will really make you feel a lot better the whole rest of the day.
Well, and if you say to somebody, you really ought to just take a moment to just be. Unfortunately, the two common responses be what?
Yeah.
It- you're missing the point. Just be. Just take a while to float. Right. I know that, well, things that I actually proactively do to try to be more positive every day. One of them I discovered years ago, and that was spend time, serious time, during the day and make at least 3 people laugh. And you can tell cheap jokes if you like, but really what I found was that unexpected kindness make people laugh, and that's the best. That
Mhm.
the quality of that laughter is the best, and it's so infectious that I always walk away from it, not feeling like I'm really proud of myself for making that person laugh, but feeling really positive about being in that moment with them, and somehow had a role in that.
Yeah.
So what does it cost to be positive to somebody else? Nothing. Except that if you're feeling so negative about yourself and you're feeling so down and you're so invested in that, it may be hard to imagine how just for a minute being sweet to somebody, being encouraging to somebody, congratulatory to somebody, how that could make you feel.
Yes, that is also great, or even I think acknowledging our own greatness,
Hmm.
right? And being gentle with ourselves. Um,
Yeah, what's wrong with standing in front of the mirror and saying, looking pretty good there, soldier?
yes.
Not that I ever say that, mind you.
Okay, so I was listening to a YouTube this weekend with Louise Hay, and she's all about mirror work. She's all about looking in the mirror, telling yourself that she loves herself, like I love you. And sometimes she'll even wink at herself, in the mirror. Or like, hey cutie, how you doing? You're looking good today,
Way to go, stud. Yeah.
Yeah, but it really it might seem silly, but it really does make a
I
difference.
don't think it is silly, you know?
Some people will think it's silly.
But I don't think it's, I'll tell you why I don't think it's silly, because I think that the very people, the poor folks that are so negative, that whether they will it or not, that they're talking to themselves as often and as loud, but in very negative terms. You know, you shoulda, you coulda,
Yeah.
it's too bad you aren't, if only, and all the rest of it. If only you were smarter, better, slicker, quicker, more beautiful, whatever. Think of all the things you miss if all you can focus on is some imagined negatives.
Well, and it's what you think about, you bring about, right? So it's like you wake
Uh,
up in the morning and you stub your toe, and how you look at that is going to determine, how your coffee is going to go. And then so you spill the coffee all over the place, and then you forget your keys inside, and whether it's like if I let's say I were to drop a cup of tea. I would be annoyed, right? However, then I would be like, okay, well, maybe the universe or God is slowing me down for a minute so that I don't get into that accident that's going to happen, moments before I'm supposed, I really do my best to, because if I were, darn it, my toe and then my coffee and then the keys and right. And then it's like, well, if I keep complaining about all of that stuff, then it's just going to bring more stuff like that.
mhm. But the song just popped into my head because music's one of the things I use. But there's that old song about when I'm worried and I can't sleep, I count my blessings instead of sheep,
Mm.
and I fall asleep counting my blessings. And that's one of the things that I do routinely and often, and quite often I do it. I share those blessings if my wife hasn't beat me into slumberland, but I don't mind saying it out loud and having a witness to me saying it's been a great day and it's wonderful being married to you. And I God, I made it to 80. What do you know? And there's a lot that can go on that list, which brings me to the important word, which is choice, because I could choose to do a negative list real easily. You know, like you say, you wake up in the morning, you stub your toe. It doesn't have to be on your list at night when you go to sleep. No, maybe you could be grateful that you crafted a new cuss word after stubbing your toe. Maybe. Or maybe you can just be grateful that you had toes to stub. I saw a post the other day, speaking of posts, that said that the whole function of your little toe is so that you can tell where the furniture is. Isn't that great?
That is great.
I think that may be true.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. We say that it is just making a different choice. However, I don't know that that's as cut and dry, right, for some people. Because sometimes people are so embedded in that negativity that it's even generational,
Yeah.
right? Like if there's no positivity in your family, like if your mom wasn't, dad, your parents weren't, your grandparent, it might be a little bit hard to get past that. And so I always bring you back to, be gentle with yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, wanting to do something differently or and have different results, knowing that in your brain, that's the first step, right? And then you can figure the rest out. But it's very interesting how there's just some people who are that way and then some that are not.
I found that for some folks, making a choice to do something differently becomes even more difficult beyond just the norms, which are pretty potent. They grew up with that. That they tried in the past, or they thought they tried. They thought they tried to be something else or choose to be another way, to act another way, to whatever. And for one reason or another, it backfired on them, or it didn't seem to work for them. And it makes me wonder if sometimes what happens is now they're afraid to try again because if you're already feeling down and blue and a failure, why put yourself in the way of doing that again? And with those folks, I think the change for them has to come real slow. I think it has to be in little tiny steps. And when I say that, I remember that movie, What About Bob? Remember that movie?
Mm.
Yeah, little tiny steps. And that's only a half joke because sometimes the change, it can be scary to change, even positive change. And sometimes the change has to happen in little tiny steps. The problem is, again, if you're doing little tiny steps, sometimes it's hard to be aware that you're making any progress at all because the steps are so damn tiny. But sometimes it's, as you say, be still and see where you are, see where you've been. Maybe those little
Even
tiny
that is
steps
hard
added up
for
to something.
even that is hard for people to just be still. I mean,
But isn't that one of the,
I have a friend, she wakes up in the morning, she brushes her teeth and she's running. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I like to wake up and have my cup of tea and sit by the fire, and she's like, whoop, out the door and running all day. And I'm like, oh, that it's just not for me.
no.
Um, I, I had a high school friend who jumped on a workshop that I was doing, and he said to me, Alana, I've known him, since we were in high school together. He said, everything that I ran away from my father being an alcoholic, I moved out of the state. And here it is, I have my own family, and I'm doing the same shit my father did. And I told him, I'm like, you get to make a different choice. And he wasn't able to do that. So I feel like we can say, yeah, it's easy. And for some people, it's not. It's a process, and it might not be something, but what outcome do you want to have? Right? For me with him, it was like, well, do you still want to show up as that father that you didn't like with your kids? Or do you want to make another choice? And I never heard
And
but
and you highlight what one of the problems is not understanding what that other choice might be. Too often people came to me and said, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried not to be that. And I've said, and what did you instead did you try to be? I mean, you have a pretty clear image of the cat you don't want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you draw me a picture of the cat you do want to be? And maybe you need to be moving toward that because all these years of moving away from that other image hasn't worked. So here we come back to being positive. And then asking that question, now that you got a clear image about what that new person's going to look like, now you can ask yourself a question every once in a while. What would Billy look like? I know how the old Bill would have operated, but I wonder what the new one would do. Let's try that. The other thing that it is a little self-disclosure here. One of the finest, kindest men I ever knew in my life was one of the most positive men I've ever known in my life. And there are times when I catch myself acting like he did and congratulating myself. And there were times growing up when I could see him in my mind's eye, and he was my model. And if you didn't have a model that was real positive for you, if you're lucky like me, you get somebody like the guy's name was Flop, but that's a terrible name, but I loved the man. And maybe you don't accidentally get somebody like that in your life, but maybe you look around and you find somebody that looks more like the image you'd like to be, and you start acting like that instead of not acting like that other person. Nature abhors a vacuum. You can't not act like something.
And I feel like I just lost what I was gonna say.
Did you? I love when that happens.
Oh.
Not that that I'm happy in your discomfort, but that happens to me all the time. And so when it happens to somebody else, I don't feel as bad.
Oh,
Well, while you're thinking of that,
no, I got it. I got
oh,
it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay, so
what?
making a different choice can be uncomfortable,
Sure.
right? However, once you make that choice, doors will open. There
One
will,
hopes.
huh?
One hopes.
Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like when we start to move in that direction, then things will start to line up. There might be some not so great things in there, but there will be other opportunities. New support, right? So for me, being the purple sheep of my family, oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So I didn't have my family, right? Because I've chosen to speak about things and not hide them away. Um, I don't speak to a lot of my family. And so I thought that I would die if I did not have my family. And the reality is that I am surrounded by loving and supportive people. I have people in my life that are like my family. However, they love me for who I am.
Mm.
So for me, making that scary choice to not be around just the drama and the dysfunction, then it allowed other people to come into my life.
Well, it comes back to healthy selfish, doesn't it?
Yes.
That I can spend the rest of my life complaining that my family doesn't love me, or I can go ahead and give them something more lovable to love. And if they make that choice, that's on them. Or I can sit and spend the rest of my life, hour by hour, complaining that I'm alone and unlovable. No, no, no. The thing that it really points to is that once you make that positive choice, it's a whole lot easier to make that trip if you have company.
Yeah.
And so people choose to do that in your coaching groups, for example, or they do it if they're recovering from schizophrenia or chemical dependency, or they want to be spiritually stronger or better. They do it in church. They do it in small groups. That we're drawn to do that as change begins to happen. But change begins to happen better as we're drawn to do it with people around us. So I mean that's an unintended ad for your coaching groups, but that's why they work, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 I love that Irvin Yalom said that one of the reasons that that kind of group endeavor works is so that one of the reasons is because I find out I'm not alone in my wretchedness. Isn't that a great phrase? I love that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think being, in the personal development seminars that I've taken for the last 20 years, um, that being around people who, express their feelings and their emotions and what they were going through. And, so then it was like, oh, everybody's doing it,
And they didn't spontaneously combust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So why doesn't everybody just want to join me? And they don't. So it's okay. That's their journey.
I think we've really beaten the daylights out of this topic
Yes.
for now. I'm sure we'll have to come back to it about being more positive.
Well, and I feel like it's like we need to talk about it more because it is such an important thing. It's our mindset and how we're going to go through the day and whether or not you're going to feel positive or negative. Because if you feel the negative, you're going to bring more negative. And
Mm,
I have been in the crappiest of days and I will just focus, sometimes become obsessed, just thinking about the positive, right? And like, what's the good to come? And okay, like, here I am. However, where am I going to be? Right? My broken leg, right?
mm,
There were times I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. How am I ever going to do this? I felt alone, I felt isolated, right? But then I needed to consciously make a different choice, to choose something different to think about. And
mhm,
so, I was like, all right, well, I could have broke both legs. I only broke one, So, even the positive in that. I mean, I was on the roller rink floor in the lesson and I started seeing the positive lessons already. So it can happen
Uh,
at any time.
there was a thing that you did during that time that I don't think is easy for folks to do or who are kind of crashing a little bit. Um, I think when folks crash or they're into negativity, that infuses their experience and it lets them believe that they're not worth stuff. There, there's a nice phrase for you. That's real specific. But for example, when if I'm feeling down or blue or lonely, one of the things that really lifts me up is just a little human contact. And my wife putting her arms around me and going, aye, 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 aye. Uh, but the problem is that the further down you get, the harder it is to ask for that because the less deserving of it you feel. And yet it's the very thing that'll lift you back out of it.
Yeah.
I I don't know if I've ever told you this story about my family, but I come from a huge family, huge. And it was during one of our family reunions that I recognized something about us that kind of talk about family norms and traditions. But I saw little kids with little pacifiers in their mouth walking around feeling kind of lost and lonely. And they would walk up to the nearest person in our family and grab a pants leg and pull the pants leg or tap on somebody and say, aye, 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 aye. And that meant you picked her up or him up and you held him against your chest and you rubbed her back and you said, aye, 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 aye.
Oh.
Yeah. And so Linda and I joke about that now, and every once in a while, when one of us is feeling that way, we'll stick our thumb in our mouth and say, "Aye, aye, aye, aye." But what it did was it told people in my family that it's okay to reach out and ask for aye ayes.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Isn't that a pretty story?
Mhm.
God, I'm glad it's true. I have an old friend who says all my stories are true. Some of them actually happened, but that one's true, and it really happened, and it still happens today. Yeah, whenever the family gets together.
Well, and that's not something that's taught. I mean, it's taught as maybe in families, and like one woman said to me, well, my family, and I'm like, I don't know, my mom was just busy surviving from her abuser, I mean, she might have forgotten to say, hey, I, right? So
Yeah,
it all just depends, and then it's now the information, you hear what we're talking about, and that there's a possibility. People have got to make the choice for themselves on what they choose. We can't force anybody. It's all, I mean, it's not all on you. The decision is yours, and once you make it, you'll have people around you to support you on that journey.
yeah. And it's hard when you're feeling negative and you ask for aye ayes and somebody rebuffs you. Uh, it's necessary to get into the habit of feeling sorry for them being unable to do it, as opposed to the more common practice, which is to feel sorry for yourself for not being worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things I said that, okay, if you don't see the value in having me around, that's all right.
Okay.
I'm gonna go somewhere where they love up on me for who I am and the value that I bring, you know? So I wish more people feel valued. I do. I wish more people had inner peace.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just taught a class, technical class, and we did evaluations, and I noticed that yeah, they really loved the information that I gave them and the little tricks of the trade and all the rest of that. But people actually have mentioned what they valued in me is that I value everybody in the class the same. I don't seem to pick winners and losers, or that there's somebody more interesting or intellectual or whatever or experienced than any other, and that they are grateful for that on the evaluation form. And I don't know that that gets me any points with the licensure board, but it makes me feel good.
For
And,
sure. For sure.
and it didn't cost me anything to do that. I mean, people hold on to compliments like they're
Mm.
manhole covers. I mean, I give you a compliment. It's not that heavy. Just throw it out there, you know. And even if I don't get it back, that's fine.
No, it's interesting. I'm working on doing that more and just giving people random, compliments when I see it. Because I feel like I think it, I'm like, oh, that's a really pretty purse she has. And I should just say it because she's probably, I know I love when people give me compliments on my purse because I'm usually like, oh yeah, I got it on sale. I like to share my deals. Um,
One of the things that I tell people is when they get a compliment, if it's too mushy, if it's not specific enough, you have the right to ask for specificity. Seriously, if somebody walks up and says, "I really like that suit," uh, I'll say thank you, or I can say, "Oh yeah, what do you like about it? Could you be more specific?" Or are you just throwing out a throwaway, or did you really mean that? And what I found was that if there is specificity, if there's something specific they like about it, that it's even more valuable.
Mm,
And it gives them a chance to tell me.
yes.
Yeah. So, I can say, I like you. Yeah. What do you like about me? Huh? Hmm? Huh?
Yeah. Well, I think we are just about at the end.
Are we?
Yes, yeah. So in wrapping up, I mean, I feel like if you want more joy in your life, you can create it.
You have a choice, to
Yeah.
coin a phrase.
It is pretty cool. Oh, you have a choice, coin a phrase.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay stuck. So, what about you? What's your final closing words?
Well, my final closing words are, we really want to hear from you. And if you have uh, a question, or if you have a content area you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to give us some feedback, we really want to hear from you. And we can hear from you at
At hello@truthbetold.world. Hello@truthbetold.world.
cool. Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining us.